I do. No, absolutely. I honor my clients.
I remember reading the guy was, I think he was a bass player, was working on one of the McCartney albums, and then McCartney left and came back and called the guy up, or one of his people called him up and said, you know, listen, we want you on the date. The guy said, I'm sorry, you know, I've got to do such and such. Hey man, this is McCartney. You know, I said, hey, I live here.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
if
right.
you know,
That's right.
sorry.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is my bread and butter. Since you're so involved in the studio scene, maybe you could shed some light. You hear a lot of conflicting reports about the life of a studio musician or a drummer. You know, you hear, man, it's really crazy. You know, they run you ragged, or there's a lot of, you know, it's a bad scene, or it's a good scene, or it's this or that. You know, do you think there's any stereotyped?
Well, I can only relate it in terms of what goes on in Toronto. I have a feeling from what I've read and from people that I've spoken to that things are different in the other centers.
Manhattan, for instance.
Yeah. I think that in Los Angeles particularly, that, and I may be completely wrong, but I think that you have more guys who specialize in record dates.
Mm-hmm.
And you have other guys who specialize in commercials and films.
Right.
And you have other guys who specialize in concerts.
Mm-hmm.
In Toronto, you have people who, because there aren't as many recording acts, and because the town, there isn't as much activity going on as in LA and New York,
Yeah.
you have fewer guys, and you have them doing more varied things.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as being run, again, I can only relate it from a Toronto standpoint. So I find that I get a chance to do so many different things in Toronto that I'm very self-bored. And when I'm run ragged, it's my own choice. People phone me, the telephone rings, and it's up to you whether you want to accept the job or not. So,
do you have that pressure of if somebody calls you up and you might just be whipped and decide not to take a gig? Is there that threat that you may not get called again?
always.
Yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Always. You always wonder. I remember saying no to a producer one time. I remember it very well. I had 5 jobs on a Friday, and a very large producer in Toronto, record producer, called me for a date on the Friday night. And I explained to him, I said, I'm going to be tired. I have to get up very early in the morning. I think my day started I had a 7 a.m. jingle, and it was pretty solid all the way through, and this was a 9 o'clock record date. And I said, I don't think I'll be any good to you, and I just don't think it would work. Why don't you call somebody else? And I had done quite a lot of work for him, and that was the last time that I worked for him. Yeah, that was. So, there's always that. There are enough good guys just waiting to jump in, waiting for an opportunity.
Yeah.
There's always that fear.
Billy the Kid, fastest gun in the West.
That's right. There's a lot of that feeling.
God, cut a lot of this already.
You always played out of Toronto, or have you been, located someplace else for extended periods of time?
I was born in Philadelphia.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lived in Philadelphia, lived in New York, lived in New Jersey, and lived in Long Island.
Where?
Good question. I was just going to say, and then moved to Toronto at the age of 5.
Oh,
Yeah.
What, dad in the service or something?
My father was,
on roller skates.
my father worked for RCA Records in New York, and then he worked for MGM Records in New York, and then they transferred him to Toronto. He had an opportunity to head up a company that was partially owned by them in Toronto. So
Wow.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
And he's still traveling, ladies and gentlemen. So you like doing the road? Enjoy getting out?
It's working with Gordon is just enough for me.
Yeah.
I think if it was too much more, I can see how people could go crazy. I have found myself actually sometimes not remembering in what state I was in or in what city I was in. I mean, just from, and I don't do drugs and I don't drink. You know. I'll have the occasional beer.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you see so many airports, so many airplanes, so many halls.
Give me an example. Like, let's say from now, from when did you leave Canada?
Friday afternoon.
So what would be some, say, Friday afternoon to today? What would the routine be for you?
Well, Friday morning I had a jingle. Friday afternoon, drive to the airport, catch airplane to Portland, Maine. See, I had to think.
Right.
Portland, Maine, where we worked last night.
Yeah.
Woke up this morning, caught an airplane to Saratoga, and then tomorrow we fly to Holmdel, New Jersey.
Now, will you stay here tonight?
Stay here tonight,
Okay.
and tomorrow fly to Holmdel, and then after the show, fly home. So we'll be home Sunday night. We will have played in 3 different states in less than 3 days.
Just 3 days and then home?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then 4 days off, and then do it again next weekend. That's the way it's booked.
So you never get into that, 265 days on the road?
Oh, no. I mean, very occasionally we'll work in Las Vegas or Lake Tahoe, but we haven't done that in a couple of years. And those are week-long jobs. We went to Europe. We played 2 dates in Germany and a date in Switzerland, and that all took 4.5 days.
And then came back home again?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's super. That'd be great.
We did. We worked. This is true. We flew from Toronto to Anchorage, Alaska. Did 2 shows in Anchorage one night. Flew to Vancouver and flew home and did all of that in less than 48 hours. 4 concerts in Alaska and British Columbia and back to Toronto in less than 48 hours.
When you move, you move.
That's moving.
Do you do, I don't know if it's a fair question to ask, like, why, when you go on the road with Gordon, is it primarily because, well, obviously you want to do that, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it, but is the other motivations to be in contact with fans or promote records or?
For me personally?
Yeah, you personally and the whole thing. Are there like managers that call up and say, hey, man, you guys haven't been on the road?
Oh, I see. No, for Gordon, no. He works when and where he wants to, really. I mean, he's at Saratoga now because he wants to be here. He certainly doesn't need the money.
Yeah.
He doesn't need it at all. He enjoys it. He loves playing for the people. There are certain places in certain towns that he likes better than others. And, he does exactly what he wants to do. He calls his own shots.
Great.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it? You pretty much just go because you like doing it?
Yep. And the terms, I mean, everything. For me, he rents, I would say 90% of the jobs we do, we fly by Learjet. He gets a Learjet. 5 of us just get in it and just go.
Yeah.
So in some of the small towns, we can just fly right into a small town. We don't have to go through Chicago 30, 40 times a year and then get a connecting flight somewhere. We can go right from Toronto right to Kalamazoo, Michigan, for instance.
Yeah.
As long as there's a landing strip, we can land there.
And if the stage is big enough.
If the stage is big enough, that's right.
Right down on the stage.
So we can leave later than most, and we get home. I mean, I've done a concert on a Sunday night. I think it was in Washington, D.C. We did a concert on a Sunday night. I was home before midnight that night, home in Toronto, in my home. I don't mean at the airport. I was at my house before midnight the same night. So that is, for somebody who does a lot of studio work like I do.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We leave in the afternoon, means I can work in the morning if I want to. And see, this weekend, for instance, I will have worked in 3 different states with Gordon. I got a jingle in Friday morning, and I'll be able to work again Monday morning, as early as I want.
Yeah.
So I will have missed Saturday and Sunday, really. That's all. So it works fabulously for my schedule, the way
God.
that he treats the things.
Yeah. So for the studio work, they book 7 days a week.
A lot of them, yeah. You don't get a lot of jingles on weekends because they have to pay a lot higher scale
Oh,
musicians.
okay.
I am missing a few things this weekend, but them's the breaks. Yeah.
I guess, what do you listen to now? You listen to probably nothing. When you get off, do you listen to?
Oh, I listen to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to do it for my work because I play a lot of. I just did a hard rock album with a girl named Lisa Del Bello in Toronto. Be out in Capitol Records pretty soon. Great album, but
Yeah.
it's as hard as Bad Company or Foreigner. I mean, it's that kind of thing. So I just did 2 Roger Whittaker albums.
Yeah.
Which is about as soft as you can get. And all the other stuff in jingles, you run the gambit of styles of music. So professionally, I have to keep up with everything. And for my own enjoyment, I love, again, Bad Company, Foreigner, I mean, all the way through to the softest things and some jazz things and some Latin things. I get a kick out of a lot of different styles of music.
Do you have any drummers that really knock you out at this point?
Oh, lots of them. Oh, yeah. John Bonham, and Zeppelin, and Carmine, of course, kills me. Oh, there's.
You ever meet Carmine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I went to dinner with Vanilla Fudge when I was.
Oh, that's right. I interviewed Carmine. He's one of the first people I interviewed.
Really?
Yeah, he was a nice cat.
Oh, yes, and he's such a great player, rock player.
Yeah.
I think those 2 guys are probably my favorite rock players in the world. They have such strength, and yet they're not crazy.
Yeah.
They still, both of them, exhibit a lot of taste. They still know when to be busy, when it's exciting, and when not to be. When it's really exciting to hear one big drum hit every 4 bars or something.
Right.
Both those guys have got the strength and the chops to play busy, but they have the brains to know when not to.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. That
Carmine,
combination.
I saw Carmine at a clinic. This Carmine, he's with Rod Stewart now. And really all I'd ever heard Carmine, I heard him go, a little bit crazy with Vanilla Fudge, but I'd never seen him in concert.
Yeah.
And he was doing this clinic, and he was rattling off this stuff that just blew my mind. I had
Oh, yeah.
no idea in the world that he could play like that.
Oh, he's an excellent player.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But he doesn't use it all the time.
No.
And that's when
Yeah.
the brains part of it. Taste,
Really?
good taste. He has the good taste to know not to show it all off.
Yeah.
You see. Where a lot of guys don't. A lot
Right.
of guys will want to play every lick they ever learned in one night. They want to show everybody how good they are, and it can be.
You teach it all in Toronto?
I did.
Yeah.
I taught for 3 or 4 years, and again before I had really any technical training. But I taught. The reason I taught was because someone offered the job to me, and I thought, I want to try this. I want to see if I can teach the way I wanted to be taught.
Yeah.
The way I wanted to learn how to play guitar like Ricky Nelson. The way I wanted to learn how to drum like Dave Clark and Ringo Starr. I thought, there's got to be kids that are excited about the drums and just want to do that. And I think there should be somebody to show them how to do that, to show them how to do it properly. But you don't have to play a bossa nova. You don't have to play, a waltz when you're first starting. You get someone's interest when they're first starting. I was teaching beginners and maybe just after beginners, but teaching them to really enjoy music, probably more than anything, and show them how to play along with records and have a good time. And I did it for 3 or 4 years, and I don't think I lost a student.
Yeah.
They
What
were-
kind of stuff how would you start? What would you use record-wise?
How you hold the drumsticks. And then I'd say, what records do you like to listen to? And they'd say, oh, I love the Rolling Stones. I'd say, okay, bring a Rolling Stones record in next time. We'd sit down, and I'd pick out something very simple, something maybe where Charlie was playing just on 2 and 4.
Right.
And I'd say, now listen, do you hear the snare drum? Okay, they get an idea of what the snare drum sounded like. They say, okay, now I want you to copy. Play what he's playing. Just that, just with your one hand. You should just play that. Get them to do it, and they get into the rhythm of playing it. And just doing that, you could see in their eyes, they were playing with the Rolling Stones.
Right.
Now they're really interested. I'll say, okay, you know what you're playing? Those are half notes. Why are they half notes? And then go to the drum book and say, okay, you got 4 quarter notes and a bar 4/4 and this and that. And they'd look at it and they'd say, oh, that's what he's doing. and try to sneak a little bit of knowledge into them at the same time as they were having a good time, right? And show them how to hold the drumsticks properly, show them how Charlie Watts holds the drumsticks maybe improperly,
Right.
but show them the difference and say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And try to get them interested. I think maybe now there are more teachers like that, but I really think that there is, not everybody wants to be a professional drummer when they take drum lessons.
Right.
Some people just want to have a good time. Well, for any kind of music, really. Some people just want to play for their own enjoyment. I think there should be people who can recognize that and teach.
So did you teach on set then? Is what you're
Yes,
saying?
oh
Yeah.
sure. And some of my students got to a certain point where I felt incapable of taking them any further technically, and I would recommend them to go to another teacher. Where I felt, okay, you've reached a certain level of competence and you're playing, you know, independence, and you're playing very, very well, and I think that you should now, you're so good, I think you should go to somebody better. Now maybe you're getting serious about it,
Yeah.
and you're getting, you know,
Yeah.
you're playing well, you're interested, you're practicing, you've got all the right signs. Now go to a really good drum teacher and let him take you from there.
Right.
And that happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I got a kick out of it. It's really
It's a good approach.
It's
you
a
don't
kick.
turn the kids off. You know?
No, turn them on to it.
Right.
Make it as simple as possible and find out what they're interested in.
Right.
And I had a couple of kids who came in who weren't interested
Yeah.
in playing the drums. They were there because their parents made them come or something. So I sent them to somebody else.
Yeah.
I said, I'm the wrong guy to teach you.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to sit here because you don't want to learn it. I don't want to teach it to you. It's a waste of time for both of us. Really, go somewhere else. But if some kid came in and said, man, I love the Beatles.
Right.
I want to play like Ringo Starr. That kind of thing. I say, okay, you came to the right guy.
You won my heart.
Really? No, I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you what to listen for, how to have a good time. We'll see if you have any sense of time, see if you have any sense of, you know, rhythm. And
Right.
they would practice. I'll tell you, they'd show a kid where 2 and 4 was on the snare drum, and they'd drive their parents nuts. They'd
Well,
say,
they-
I can't get the kid to stop practicing the drums, you know, and let's say, hey, that's great.
Did you know that up until, God, I think just very recently, there was not, how you doing on time?
Fine.
You all right? There was not, there were very few colleges that taught drum set.
Yes.
I never, even Boston University, I was a kid who was a percussion major
Yeah.
at Boston University. He said that the university did not own a drum set.
Mm.
You know? Because I think that was a thing for drummers for a long time. When you said, probably when you started taking lessons, you know, it's either a pad or a snare drum.
Yeah.
And you're hearing drum set, you know?
Yeah,
When-
cymbals and bass drum and
Yeah.
tom-toms. Yes, I know. And then people start teaching you rudiments right away, and you say, oh, that's
And all you need to know is maybe 2 rolls, a single and a double, and all the rest is
yeah.
a combination
Learn it
thereof.
later when you're hooked.
Right.
And you say, okay, now
Yeah.
how does he do that? And you say, okay, now you got to practice doing this, and somebody will say, okay, now it makes sense to me. Now
Right.
I understand it. But to go mama dada, mama dada, mama dada when a kid wants to really, when he wants to, you know, play honky tonk woman,
Right.
you
Right.
know, who needs it really?
You don't need it. It's not easy.
And a lot of very, very good, some of the best pop records and rock records are based on the simplest drum beats.
Right.
And it may not be just a coincidence. Some of the simplest basics on the drums set up some of the greatest feeling rock things.
Right.
And you can teach a kid to play exactly what their heroes are playing. You can teach them what they're playing on the bass drum, the hi-hat, the right hand, the left hand. You can teach them what they're playing, listen to an album and find out something that's simple and show it to them in a couple of weeks. You
Right.
can teach them to play just like their idols in a couple of weeks if you take that approach.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've never seen such excitement from somebody that have, you know, come in with an album and teach them, show them what they're doing, and you can see them say,
Yeah.
you know, they can hear what he's doing, and they say, geez, I sound just like Charlie Watts.
I'm doing
You
the
know,
same.
yeah, show me more, show me more, show me more. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Have you ever considered doing clinics at all, or have you done with that? What, bother? Yeah, well, that's true. You're
Well,
pretty
now,
busy.
yeah, I'm very busy now, and also I think there are a lot more proficient technicians around to show that kind of thing. I mean, I'd be happy to. I
I would think there'd be a lot of like inside studio things we might be able to help people with, or people drummers that wanted to go into that area of playing.
Well, I do some lectures during the year. There are a couple of music recording type college courses in Canada, and I go out there every year and do a lecture on recording. And again, I try to, for these would-be producer, engineer, musician, arrangers, all these people who want to get into it, I took a course in, I guess, the early 70s at the Eastman School of Music in Rochester, University of Rochester, that was given by Phil Ramone and Dave Green, both from A&R Studios. Phil Ramone.
Yeah.
I wanted to try to learn more about production. I was still into producing and doing a little bit of engineering at that time. And the most I got out of that course was sitting with Phil Ramone, getting a chance to sit with him and just talking to him about the business. Like he worked with, at that time, Dionne Warwick and the Guess Who and Burt Bacharach. And just to hear him talk about these people took some of the, it brought the whole thing closer to home, made it seem real.
Took a lot of the mystique out of it.
I'm sorry, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Took a lot of the mystique out of it, and you could see, actually, here's a guy making hit records and how he did it with the people who did it. And just talking to Phil Ramone, I learned more, sitting over a drink talking to him, I learned more than I did out of that 2-week course on the how to mic a tuba and how to, all that stuff. Just talking to him. So when I go out and do a lecture, I try to do the same thing. I try to say, okay, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of great producers and artists and, studios. And basically, I tell the kids to get a job as soon as they can in some related field in the business. I don't care if it's a radio station or a record store or whatever it is, and do the best job you can at it. That there's always room for competent people. If you wait forever to be a producer, you're going to wait forever. Go in and clean up in a studio, do that kind of thing, and learn about the business, because so many ends of the business are related.
Yeah.
Do that kind of a thing and talk about the economics of earning a living, how you need money from certain ways to pay for some of your things that you're going to play at. And then I open it up for questions. Let them ask me questions about stupid questions. I mean, what's Anne Murray really like? That kind of a thing. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to be able to say, okay, yeah, I've done 5 albums with her. I'll tell you what it's like to work with her. And it's like this. She sits in a chair while the rhythm section runs down the song. And you can see people envisioning this in their mind, saying, yeah, I've heard those albums, and let's see. Okay, I can see her sitting, and the rhythm section runs it down, and that's the way it's done.
Yeah.
And it sinks in.
Yep.
It really does. And I think that's important, too.
That's the way it really happens. Yeah. That's a great approach.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I just had another question. I'm getting old. Hey.
None of us are getting any older.
Oh, God. It's going. It'll come back. It's like the words to Rock of Ages. I kept wishing I'd put the inner sleeve with the album, I was going to scream it out from the balcony. It's just, geez, he looks really mad. I better not say it.
That wouldn't have been the right time.
No.
By the way, thanks for hanging around with things like conspicuous. That was, it helps.
I learned to do that, just when there was enough moronic journalists hanging around.
Well, some people just don't realize that they really don't.
So I played like 6 years.
Play the drums?
Yeah, yeah. So, it's bad. Take off, get lost. God, I can't think, Barry. How about yourself? Is there anything you want to touch on that you don't think we have touched on? How about you, Wayne? All right.
Is that enough
Yeah.
stuff to work with?